All right, welcome in, you guys. We got One Piece chapter 1133. I'm your host, Sai, and this is my cat, Kuro, who just decided to join me. And we're here to talk about One Piece. Well, we, as in I, he can't talk, believe it or not. But yes, we're here to talk about the latest chapter, just kind of break it down a little bit and have a little discussion. And first things first, we got to start with the cover page before we work our way down. So we got volume, what is this, volume 20? Let me see. Volume 20 of Yamato's cover page journey, and we have finally met the culprit here in Wano, the person who possibly stole the sword and had been kidnapping women, and it's Hold'em. So, not exactly who I thought it was going to be, right? We all thought about the Beast Pirates, right? The Toby Roppo and Jack and all them. But never have I seen somebody say, hey, Sai, I think it's Hold'em specifically. It's kind of crazy. At first, I was kind of wondering if maybe he's not the mastermind, right? Maybe he's working for Jack or the Toby Roppo or other Beast Pirates who are around. And I still think that's possible. But Hold'em is telling Yamato to drop their belongings and flee. So it does sound like they've turned into a bandit. Of course, though, I do gotta say that even though Hold'em is here, it isn't guaranteed that the other Beast Pirates are working with him, because Hold'em is very special. He's a character that has existed in Wano well before Kaido. He was born and raised here. So it kind of makes sense that he's still here after Kaido's downfall. But of course, like, anything's really possible here. I still see there being a possibility that Jack is around, because he's the only headliner. Is it headliner? No, he's the only Calamity, sorry, I get him mixed up sometimes. He's the only Calamity that was not captured by Aramaki, right? King, Queen, they were captured. Jack was nowhere to be seen. And we do know that Hold'em, while Kaido was ruling Wano, was working under Jack. So I think it would make sense if Jack was here and he was the one giving orders, but either way, it still doesn't make too much sense as to why Hold'em is asking them to drop their belongings, right? He's a bandit. Is he trying to make some money? Is he trying to survive here at Wano? Why doesn't he just leave? There's so many questions that are still around. And, you know, he's holding a sword right now and he's trying to fight, you know, Tama, Speed, and Yamato, but I'm like, wait a minute, where's Yasui's blade? Right? Like, why wouldn't he, like, have Yasui's blade instead? Or why is it not on his back or, like, in his satchel? So there are still a lot of oddities about the cover page story. And I don't think this is the end of the mystery. As far as Yamato versus Hold'em goes, even though Tama is a hostage, I think this is going to be fine. I mean, this happened at the beginning of Wano with Luffy, right? This exact same scenario. Hold'em had Tama. Tama eventually bit Hold'em. Tama got out, and then Luffy whomped this guy, right? Like, the same thing's gonna happen here most likely, and we do have to remember that Tama has been training to be a proper female shinobi, so there is a chance that she knows a couple of techniques even, right? So I don't think she's as helpless as she's making it seem, and as long as she gets like a second down on Hold'em, Yamato can definitely finish this guy off. Like, this guy's gonna be no issue whatsoever. One thing I'm really excited for now that we have this development is to see whether or not this will eventually lead to Kaido and Big Mom, right? If we're saying that Hold'em is here with potentially Jack and the Toby Roppo, then they could be on the hunt for where Kaido landed after the volcano exploded, which wouldn't be too insane to think about, considering the fact that Jack is a fisherman. You know, we saw that back in the Wano flashback, that they dangled Jack from a rope to have him search for poneglyphs and ancient treasure. So there is a chance that that is how they're looking for Kaido. You know, they tied Jack up with the rope, and now they're just dropping him in the ocean, hoping to find their boss. Another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is that if you look in the background, this fight is actually taking place in Aramaki's forest. You know, funny because we mentioned him a minute ago, but Aramaki has had positive, lasting effects here in Wano. Like, Udon was a wasteland, a desert. But now look at it, right? Now look at it. We got trees, flowers, and flora everywhere, all thanks to Admiral Green Bull. So now, on to the chapter. We start off with the Ohara flashback. This is pretty cool because it's not like a one-to-one flashback. We actually get Spandine's perspective. We get the citizen's perspective. And Spandine starts it off by saying that this was all due to Robin. The warship that went down, the murdered people, it's all Robin's fault. And now we can see how the narrative spun out of control and how people came to believe that Robin is a monster because Cypherpole's the one who said it. Of course, I still think it's kind of crazy to think about, right? Like, you look at the poster, I'd be one of those guys who would get fooled by Robin. Well, fooled by Robin, right? I mean, she's not actually evil, but I look at the poster and I'd be like, no way. Like, demon disguised as a kid? This thing did it? I don't know, man. But of course, the general populace of One Piece all believe in the newspaper, and that is why they start hunting Robin willy-nilly. You got bounty hunters, marines, civilians. Robin is not safe. She's eating from garbage cans. She's sleeping next to dogs. Life is not good. And we get one certain scene in particular, which really stood out to me at least, but it was when Robin went to a bookshop and she saw a map of Ohara. Well, she saw a map. Ohara wasn't there, and Robin decided to pen it in, right? She drew the circle and she wrote in Ohara. And the reason why that really stood out to me is, one, it's an adorable moment, but two, it also kind of reminds me of Emu. Right? Very rarely do we get close-ups of maps like that where people draw on them. So it's like, yo, like it's kind of fitting that Robin, the archaeologist, somebody who's studying the Void Century, would put the circle there for Ohara, kind of bringing it back to life. And I wonder if we'll get more of that. And the reason I say that, and the reason why I bring up Emu in this certain scenario, is because we had a color spread where Robin was playing chess with the Straw Hat Pirates, right? She was sitting in the player's seat, and she was moving the pieces up and down. And people were wondering, who is Robin playing, right? Not like it actually matters, but if we have the Straw Hats on one side with Robin as the mastermind and strategist, who's on the opposing end of that table? And I heard a good theory from my friend Par, and he said that, oh, maybe the person sitting on the opposite end is Emu, and they're moving the Holy Knights. And I was like, yo, that's kind of fire. And, you know, that's kind of why I wanted to bring up Emu in this context. You know, we have Emu erasing history with the world government, and then we have Robin bringing life back to history, if that's the right way to put it. So among this flashback, we also get a scene where Robin is about to jump off a cliff, or at least it's implied. Robin is walking closer and closer to the edge, but she does get words of wisdom from Saul, her mother, and Clover. Well, actually, we don't see Clover, but I like to imagine Clover's there somewhere. And because of everybody telling her that her life is valuable and that she should live, she decides to back off and continue the struggle. And it's a really sad thing to see, right? And it makes sense as to why she'd be pushed to this extent. I mean, she has no one, right? Like, she's got nobody here. She can't trust anybody. I remember during the anime, and I think it was like an additive scene, but there was even like a scene where a family took Robin in for a little bit, and then the minute they saw her bounty poster, they shoot her out. They called the Marines to capture her. She can't trust anyone out here, man. So yeah, it's a miracle that she survived all this time. And I know it doesn't matter right now, but I kind of wish we got to see the first underground organization Robin became a part of, right? Because we know she eventually ends up with Crocodile, but before that, she apparently worked for many other underground organizations. So I kind of wish we saw like the first person that gave her a handout, which I do gotta say, there is a Law light novel that's currently out, and we get more backstory of Law before he became the pirate we know today. So with that being the case, I kind of wonder if Robin will ever get her own light novel. I think it'd be really well deserved, right? Robin's adventures as a teenager through the world of One Piece. What did she see? What did she learn? Who was the first person that gave her a fake home? I say fake home because, you know, underground organizations like Baroque Works don't exactly care for you. So yeah, I think a Robin light novel would be super, super cool. Or at least a Robin spinoff, right? A Robin spinoff would be sick. So now we cut back to present day and we are on Elbaph. And we see the end of the rainbow. The Straw Hats land on the port and they notice that they're actually landing on island clouds. It is insane. Elbaph is a mixture of so many different things. You got a giant tree, you got a snowy underworld, right? You got mountains, you got Skypian elements. Well, Skypian elements like island clouds. And you even have sea clouds here too. So Vegapunk, or Lilith, says that because of all of the properties here in Elbaph, so many technologies can coexist. And one thing I found interesting is that Lilith actually says hover. We don't really know the context of what they mean by that, but I'm assuming they mean hover technology, like the same technology we saw back on Egghead Island. So yeah, I do think that will play a role later on. Maybe we all throw on our Egghead Island boots and just have some fun. So we cut over and we see that Hardin's group are celebrating Luffy's arrival. And it's really funny because you can actually see Road in the background, and that guy is being crucified. He's beaten up, he has more injuries now than ever, and he's tied to a cross. And what's interesting here is that while they're giving the introduction of the new giant warrior pirates, they're like, yeah, the four of us are those guys. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Hardin, Stanson, Goldberg, Gerd, they're not including Road. You know, Road is not a part of that conversation anymore. And Road in the background is like, oh, guys, it's actually 5 of us. There's 5 of us here. And it's like, wait a minute. Is this them kicking Road out of the crew? Not insane, right? I think Road does need to be kicked out because he did attack the Yonko crew. They attacked their patron saint, essentially. So yeah, kick Road out of the group. I think that'd be a-okay. But it does look like Road wants to stay a part of the new warrior giant pirates, which is kind of weird, right? Because Road didn't like Hardin because he followed Luffy, and he also doesn't like Luffy. So with that being the case, I don't know why Road wants to stick around, unless he has nothing better to do. But yeah, really interesting here. I am curious to see if Road will get unchained later on. Maybe once we free Loki and he starts causing chaos, Road will be freed in the process. I could see that happening. And here's the thing too, right? Like, Road worships the sun god. He loves that guy so much he's willing to cosplay as him. And now he's got 2 sun gods in front of him. He's got sun god Luffy and sun god Loki. He didn't like Luffy because he was a human. Well, maybe he'll, you know, start worshiping sun god Loki instead. I could totally see that being the case. And then Gerd, you know, back when we got the Loki reveal chapter, she did say that, you know, Road is even worse than Loki. You know, he's the shame of Elbaf. So they're kind of like pitter-patter together there, right? When people think of bad people in Elbaf, Road and Loki are the first people that come to mind. So maybe they do team up to an extent. But then again, Road kind of is a bum. You know, I hate saying that sometimes, but Road isn't exactly the strongest new warrior giant pirate. I mean, hell, the Straw Hats treated this guy like a joke. So if he does come back, I wonder what role he's going to fulfill. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm struggling with Road, but either way, I'm glad to know that he has been dealt with properly and that he's not actually escaping his punishments. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to talk about earlier is the Zval, the mist ship that some of the giants arrive on. And it's this ship that can fly in the sky and it's being propelled by island clouds. It reminds me of Kaido's Devil Fruit, right? Where Kaido's technically grabbing onto flame clouds to fly. This right here is pretty much the same thing, but with island clouds, and it's really cool. And it just goes to show that even though we left Egghead Island, technology is still going to be very important. And the reason I bring that up is because of Frankie, right? Some people were pretty disappointed that Frankie didn't get any upgrades. Frankie didn't learn anything new while we were on Egghead. Well, here's the thing. As long as we have Lilith, a Vegapunk with us, it's still possible for him to grow. So hopefully by the time we leave Elbaf, Frankie will have some kind of upgrades for the Thousand Sunny or himself. For Frankie, you know, this is kind of like a side tangent, right? But for Frankie, I could see either 2 things happening. 1, Frankie will upgrade the Thousand Sunny because we have the Atomwood tree here. We have mist ships, and we also have rainbows, right? Like the Thousand Sunny could get meaningful upgrades in that regard. Another thing that Frankie could get specifically, though, is back shots from Lilith. Dude, throughout the entire series, Frankie's one weakness has been his back. If somebody were to shoot him in the back, he would get injured because that's the one part of his body that he's not able to modify. He can't reach back there. But guess what? We have a genius with us. We have Lilith. So if they have time to spare, hopefully Lilith can just, you know, go behind Frankie and tune this guy up. Of course, that's wishful thinking, right? Not every Straw Hat needs an upgrade, but if he were to get one, that's kind of what I'm expecting. So now, moving on with the chapter, we cut back to Hardin and Luffy's conversation. And Hardin says, hey, you know, I read the news, I didn't really know what was happening, but when I heard that Big Mom was defeated, not just me, but all the giants were celebrating. And Luffy hits this guy with a question mark, right? Luffy doesn't really know what Hardin's talking about, and that's simply because Luffy did not beat Big Mom. He knows that. He's like, wait a minute. Big Mom? That's a weird name for Kaido, right? He doesn't say that, but I'm just, you know, making a joke. But yeah, Luffy doesn't claim that victory. He doesn't claim that title. And I think that's really noteworthy because that does leave the door open for Law and Kid to take that credit as they rightfully should. And the reason I bring up Law and Kid is because Kid, as we saw, was off the coast of Elbaf. And then Law and Beppo were on their way to some random island, right? They were looking for some kind of refuge after the Blackbeard fight. So they could potentially end up here in Elbaf. I don't think that's super insane because one of the main reasons why Nami wanted to come to Elbaf and the reason why that got brought up in the first place is because the log pose pointed at Elbaf still. And it's like, yo, Beppo's a navigator. Beppo has a log pose. If he made the same decision as Nami saying, hey, let's go to the closest island, Elbaf would be that place. So I do think there is a chance that Law and Kid do show up here, and Luffy says, no, I didn't beat Big Mom. It was these guys over here, and that is when they get credit, and that's when they're able to, recuperate, have some fun here in Elbaf with the Straw Hats. Would that be awkward? A little bit, yeah. Would people get kind of annoyed that Law and Kid are here? Maybe, but I think that would fit really well, right? Those guys do need new ships. The Punk Victoria, destroyed. The Polar Tang, destroyed. Well, if they're welcomed here in Elbaf, they could just make new ships thanks to the Giants' appreciation and Atomwood. So yeah, I think it is noteworthy that Luffy just didn't immediately take credit. I do think it's noteworthy that he didn't mention Law and Kid right away. And before they could go on and on about the Big Mom topic, Hardin says, hey, we'll save this all for a different day. Let's just go and eat. We'll save the Big Mom talks for after the feast. And it's like, okay, Oda knows what he's doing here, right? He doesn't want to give us more Big Mom stuff. He doesn't want to give us more Law and Kid stuff. He said, let's just move on for now. And that is when we pan out and we see that a lot of giants are participating in this feast, right? It's not just the new warrior giant pirates. It's not just the old giant warrior pirates. No. It looks like all the residents of Elbaf are coming to celebrate Luffy's arrival. And I wonder how many of these guys are Sun God Nika believers. I wonder how many of these guys know that Luffy is the sun god that they've been waiting for, right? Because I feel like that'd be really awkward, and I feel like that needs to be kind of explained or touched on, and I think that's another reason why Oda took us away from this party, right? Because Loki thinks he's the sun god. Loki ate the devil fruit that the royal family has been hiding. Well, I mean, we have Sun God Nika Luffy here who has the Sun God Devil Fruit. Dorian Broggie knows that. So, if we stay here for too long, somebody's going to bring that up, So I think it's kind of smart that Oda decided to cut it right away. And he does that with Robin. So we have a little bit of a break. And Robin tells the Straw Hats off screen that she wants to go see Saul. And we jump into the middle of that conversation in that same page. And Luffy says, wait, forget the feast. I want to go with you. I want to go and see the guy who played a major role in my Nakama's life. And this really caught me by surprise, right? Because Luffy, he's got food for eyes, man. Like this guy has a stomach for an eye socket. He just wants to eat, party, and live with the giants. He wants to have fun. So I really did think that Luffy would just, bumble around while Robin has her emotional scene. But Luffy shows a lot of maturity here by saying, no, like, the party can wait. I want to go meet Saul. If he's important to you, he's important to me. And I love that. I really do. And I know some people are saying, oh, like, Sai, of course Luffy would do this. But here's the thing. Even Robin's surprised. Robin says, wait, you remember? Like, you remember that about me? I'm like, yeah. That's a feel-good moment, man. It's definitely a feel-good moment. So Gerd decides to take Robin and the crew over there, and Hardin and the rest say, hey, while you guys go meet Saul, we'll cook up the meat. No worries about it, right? Like, they have no problems with this whatsoever, which is also really wholesome. They're like, hey, the party can wait, we'll cook, you guys go, and make sure to bring Saul back with you so that he can join the feast too. So we take the Sval all the way to the Warrior Spring, and we come to find out that Saul, this entire time, has been a history teacher. And hey, if the shoe fits, wear it, brother. So not just is he a history teacher and has lessons, but he also teaches his students about various books. Various books. Oh, okay, Oda, various books? All right, what are we talking about here, right? So when I think about books, are we going to hear about Bragman? Right? Like, because Bragman is a very important book that got brought up last chapter. So I think there's a chance we might learn more about Bragman from Saul, or perhaps the books that they're referring to are about the Void Century. Maybe the books in question are actually Poneglyph rubbings. Because Saul, if he has the Ohara books with him, and if he's been studying it the whole time, then he should be able to read the Poneglyphs. It's possible. That's how the Oharan scholars learned it. So Saul could be another Poneglyph reader too, especially if all these 22 years he's been working on it, right? So I think that is very, very, very possible. So now on to the next panel, we get a great shot of the Warrior Spring and Owl Library, and it looks fantastic. And I don't throw out this praise often. I didn't throw it out for Egghead. I didn't throw it out for Wano or any other island, really. Maybe Whole Cake Island I did here and there. but I really do think that Elbaf is beautiful. I think it's definitely one of the best islands we've been to from a visual standpoint. You know, when I think about islands I would like to live on, I think about Water 7 without Aqua Laguna. I think of Whole Cake Island. And now, at the top of the list, at the #1 spot, I'm not even joking, it's Elbaf. Clouds, rainbows, trees, springs, you know, really cool wooden houses. It's like, okay, Elbaf is awesome. All we have to do is get rid of the giants and replace them with humans, and oh my god, it's the best place to live. So, what really caught my attention was Owl Library, the name of it, right? Because we don't know many owls in the series. We know Fukuro from CP9, that actually translates to owl, but of course, you know, he's not an actual owl, right? I doubt this has anything to do with him, and the only other owl we've seen is Piper, Gaird's bird. And it's like, okay, like, are we going to see more owls here? Is there going to be some sort of master owl? Oddly enough, you know, I just recently rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and since this is a library, since we have a bunch of books here and there's like a wealth of knowledge in that household, I kind of like think back to season 2 where we go to the desert and there's this giant owl like in a library just tending all the books. I'm like, wait, like, are we going to see something like that? Like, there's got to be a reason why they named it the Owl Library, right? It's either tied to the books that Saul's studying, maybe it's tied to a Poneglyph, or maybe there is just a giant owl there. I honestly don't think that'd be super weird considering where we're at, right? We've met a lot of giant animals on this island so far. So yeah, maybe there is a big old owl hiding in that household, right? We are even at the top of a tree, and that's typically where owls like to hang out. Another thing I do want to point out, you know, speaking of animals, when you go back to the panel where they're throwing the feast and all the giants are like throwing their hands up, you actually see like this bear creature in the background, just kind of hanging out with all the giants. And I'm like, wait a minute, who is that? You know, like among all the giants, there's this giant bear just hanging out. It's not Panda Man either. Let me look at him. Yeah. It's just like a weird bear, like no introduction, no dialogue, nobody mentioning him. It's just, I don't know. It just feels like one of those small details you pick up in the background that's really cool to find. So now, back to the Warrior's Spring. It's kind of non-distinct, you know, it looks nice, it looks cool, but we do get some backstory about how this is here, which I kind of enjoy, right? Oda says, the beach is formed out of parts of the tree that were fossilized and worn down by weather. There's no ebb and flow naturally, but because of the waterfalls, there are waves that form here. And I'm like, okay, like Oda kind of went into detail as to how this exists. One thing I'm kind of curious about now is if this Warrior Spring has any special properties. We've seen that not just in One Piece, but in a lot of other series where springs sometimes have healing properties, or maybe they have special water. So I kind of wonder if the Warrior Spring is going to be the exact same way. Either way, I do think there could be something special about this later. So now, we see Luffy, and he is ready to meet Saul. Not exactly because he wants to meet him, but because he wants to bring Saul back to the feast so that they can have a party. Classic Luffy, but Nami stops him saying, hey, this is Robin's reunion. Let's not spoil it, Luffy. Let's give her a couple of minutes. Robin then walks onto the beach. Her heart is pounding, and that is when we get hit with some bad news. You see one of Saul Sensei's students running out saying, hey, help, it's Saul. He's fallen and he can't get up. And this is where we ended off 2 chapters ago, right? Oda decided to give us a cliffhanger where Saul might be dead. You know, Saul's dying, Saul is sick. And I was there and I was worried. I was like, okay, Oda, are you really going to kill Saul after all these years? The minute Robin shows up, he kills Saul. What a madman, right? A lot of us kind of thought that. And so much so that Luffy even thinks that. Luffy says, oh no, we went all this way to see him. And then Sanji says, it's a reunion after 22 years and he fell down. Chopper wants to go examine him. And even Usopp is like, yo, Chopper, you gotta do something, man. Don't let Saul die. So yeah, rightfully so, they're all pretty peeved about this. They're all really concerned. But Robin sees through this instantly. Robin walks up and she says, yo, this guy is goofy. This guy is silly. She's not going to be fooled. She walks up and Saul ends up screaming at her. He hits her with a gua. And I love this callback. I mean, shot for shot, it is the exact same panel we saw back during Ohara. Except this time, Robin isn't a little girl. She's a grown-up. And just like back in the day, she's not scared. She is unfazed. And, you know, it's enough to bring tears to a grown man's face, but we get the wholesome reunion where he's like, hey, you know, you're not a kid anymore, man. I didn't know how to talk to you. Like, it's kind of funny. It's awkward. It's adorable. And I'm sure we've all been there where you meet somebody after a while, or, you know, somebody you've been looking up to, you meet them and you don't know how to start that conversation. And Saul is kind of the same way. He just didn't know what to do. So he wanted to, you know, set up this elaborate prank on her. And yeah, we just get hit with back-to-back feel-good moments, from, hey, you look like your mom, to, hey, you have the same old laugh. And yeah, Saul talks a little bit about how he survived the Ohara Buster call. He doesn't go into too much detail. It looks like he wanted to go into more detail, but Robin does cut him off. But what we do get is that after he was frozen by Aokiji, he was shortly then knocked into the water, and that is how he thawed out. We're not too sure how he got knocked into the water. Maybe the landmass was evaporated due to cannonballs. Maybe it was an explosion that knocked him back, or maybe it was Kuzan who pushed him in the water. There's a lot of options here, but either way, regardless, Saul is alive. But he does have burn scars. That is important, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, Saul survived, and he wants to talk a little bit more about this, but Robin cuts him off and says, hey. That is hella depressing, man. You know, like, let's not dwell in the past. Let's focus on today. Saul, give me a hug, right? She says, you gotta praise me for being alive for all these years. And Saul does just that. And, you know, like I said, man, it's enough to bring tears to a grown man's face. And that is where we end off, with an emotional hug between Robin and Saul. And it's actually really impressive that up until that last page, they're able to hold in the tears. Right, because they're having this conversation, they're trying to pretend like nothing crazy is going on. I mean, Saul even talks about Vegapunk at one point, which I thought was hilarious. And yeah, we end off and all the Straw Hats are crying with them. Of course, Luffy, Zoro, and Jinbei, they're locked in. You know, they don't want to cry. But everybody else, rightfully so, are really emotional. And yeah, that is what we have. End of the chapter. There is a break next week, but we should be getting one more chapter before the year ends. So now, on to what everybody is talking about. Well, not everybody, but is Saul the man marked by flames? So, base level, I don't think he is. I'll explain why. I'm open to it, but I'll explain why. This chapter did not give us anything new in regards to the man marked by flames. We always knew that Saul had burn scars. The minute Vegapunk said he was alive, boom. Is he the man marked by flames? We are no closer to that answer than all the way back when we were on Egghead Island. Because Saul was bandaged up, he was burned, and we already knew all of this. This chapter did not give us any new information. But as far as Saul being that character, it doesn't look that bad, because he is a character that, one, fits the timeline, right? Ohara happened 22 years ago. The Poneglyph got stolen 20-ish years ago. So yeah, that tracks. As far as transporting the Poneglyph, Saul can do that, because guess what? He's a giant, right? He can easily just pick up a Poneglyph and take it with him. But now, as for why he doesn't work as the man marked by flames, that is because Saul does not have a black ship to our knowledge. He doesn't. He really doesn't. Maybe he has a ship in the background, but we have not seen it yet. And also, there is the whirlpool ability that is yet to be explained. Saul, I don't think he has a devil fruit. I'm gonna be honest. But there is something I found out that was really interesting about Saul's character. And apparently, when he was first introduced, he talked about devil fruits and he said he was envious of their powers. So there is a chance that maybe he did end up eating a devil fruit down the road, and that was foreshadowing it, right? Saul said he was jealous of the powers granted by devil fruits. So yeah, maybe he did eat a whirlwind or whirlpool devil fruit, and he is that guy. Another thing that kind of works for Saul is that he is someone who worked formerly for the world government. That is something that Shiryu said during the Blackbeard flashback. And when Saul is introduced in this chapter, Oda does give him the title of former vice admiral, which I thought was kind of interesting, right? I'm surprised they don't just say, oh, you know, scholar of Elbaf or historian Saul. No. They say former vice admiral. So maybe Saul is the man marked by flames. But like I said, we just need more context. We need more information. But as far as him being it, I think that fits. I think there's a lot of things that go for him compared to most characters. But yeah, that is how I feel about that topic. So now let's talk about the hypothetical. he is that guy. He does have that fourth road Poneglyph. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're going to Laugh Tale, baby. Yes, if Saul has it, then we have all the Poneglyphs. We can go to Laugh Tale right after Elbaf. And I don't think that would be super shocking. You know, when you think about it, there's not a lot of places left for us to go, right? We have Lodestar, if Oda wants to go there. We have, you know, Marie's Raw, and then we have Laugh Tale. There's not a lot of islands left. So if Saul does have it, that would streamline the journey. So I don't think it's that bad. Of course, there are a couple of interesting things that get brought up if he is the man marked by flames, minus just the Straw Hat's journey. Because at that point, we have to talk about Shanks. Shanks was on this island. Shanks apparently came here pretty often. So if Saul is that man and has the Poneglyphs, that means that Shanks has that Poneglyph too. And if Shanks has it, then he's also going to be on his way to Laugh Tale. Of course, there is some debate as to how many Poneglyphs Kid had. You know, some people say 2, some people say 3. And the reason why I think that's a hot topic of debate is because Law, you know, back when he gave Kid the Kaido Poneglyph, Law said that it wouldn't feel fair if Kid didn't have it, right? And then also during the anime episode, which anime canon isn't manga canon, but there was a scene where Kid said, oh, I only need one more Poneglyph, one more, and then I'll become Pirate King. So that could either insinuate that he has the Zou Poneglyph, or it could insinuate that after he leaves Elbaf and defeats Shanks, he'll have another Poneglyph. So that could work in Saul's favor, or that could just work with Kid's fantasy. There's a lot of weird things about that. It's weird bringing up anime canon here, but you do have to remember that Oda does watch the anime, right? So if anything, I'm kind of curious to see what was Oda's reaction to that scene. Did he look at that and say, oh, I didn't want Kid to say that? Or did he tell the animators to add that in, saying, hey, like, have Kid say he needs just one Poneglyph, guys. Like, throw it in there. Make it be post-Elbaf, or maybe insinuate that he has the Zou one. Either way, though, if Shanks does have the hypothetical Saul Poneglyph, then he is on his way to Laugh Tale pretty damn soon. And whether or not Shanks has the Zou one from Kid, I don't think matters too much. Because Shanks is friends with Nekomamushi, Inuarashi. He's friends with the Minx because he was a part of Roger's journey. You know, Shanks was at Zou. So if he goes there, I don't think he would get much pushback, right? He would walk up there, say, hey, how's it going, guys? I know you're leaders. I probably know a couple of you guys. I'm here to get a Poneglyph. Okay, peace out, right? Like, that would really only delay Shanks a little bit. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on there. But either way, I think this is a great development. I loved the Robin and Saul interaction. You guys know me, I'm not the biggest Jaguar D Saul fan, but when it comes to the emotions between him and Robin, I'm a big fan of it, right? That's just how it is. It's the same with Kuma, you know? Kuma wasn't my favorite character, but guess what? I love Kuma. Just how it is, right? So another thing I want to bring up is that Saul, like I said, is a member of the D clan. We can't forget that. So since Saul has been a historian, since Saul has been reading books and maybe even the Poneglyphs, I wonder if he'll give us more about the Will of D. You know, like it's entirely possible that this is who we get Will of D information from. You know, like when they walk into the story and say they are a scholar and have been reading and exploring various books, dude, I set my standards kind of high. You know, I'm expecting a lot out of this guy. And last thing to leave off on with Saul is that if you look at the panel where he's introduced or reintroduced, he actually has a peg leg. How'd that happen? You know, Aokiji, did Aokiji like freeze his leg off completely? Did his leg get blown off by a cannonball? Did he go through some kind of red leg Zeph situation with Sanji? Like, I don't know what happened to the leg, right? The burn scars make sense, but the leg doesn't make sense in my opinion. Like, I'm kind of wondering, did Saul get in a fight with somebody? Like who cut off this guy's leg, man? But yeah, either way though, overall, this was a phenomenal chapter. I would give it like a solid... I give it like a 9 out of 10, man. I give it a solid 9 out of 10. The only thing stopping me from giving it a 10 out of 10 is because I'm a fight junkie. You know, maybe if somebody threw a fist here or there, I'd be like, okay, 10 out of 10. But of course, not every chapter has to be a fight chapter, right? We gotta stop and smell those roses, and these roses are smelling pretty damn good. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the chapter down below. Of course, we will come back here in the next couple of days and read through the comment section and just have some fun. So yeah, we'll catch you guys later. My name is Sai, and I am signing out. Peace, brother.